Have you ever noticed a woman who goes completely silent the moment she's hurt? No yelling, no arguments, no dramatic exit. Just a sudden, heavy quiet that fills the whole room. 1 second she's there. The next she's somewhere else entirely, even if she's still standing right in front of you. Most people read that silence wrong. They call it cold. They call it manipulative. They say she's playing games, giving the silent treatment, punishing someone on purpose. And that misread causes more damage than the original hurt ever did. But psychology says this isn't a strategy. It's not a power move. What's actually happening when she goes quiet is a biological response she didn't choose and can't just override. And there's one specific thing happening in her brain during that silence that almost everyone around her gets completely wrong. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what it is. Most people know the two stress responses, fight or flight. What most people don't know is that there's a third one, and it's just as hardwired into the human nervous system as the other two. It's called the freeze response, and researcher Peter Levine spent decades documenting how it works. When emotional pain hits faster than the brain can process it in real time, the nervous system doesn't always push outward into fight or flight. Sometimes it pulls the brake. It slows everything down, quiets the body, and creates what looks from the outside like stillness. That's not her being cold. That's her brain running an emergency protocol. And here's the part that changes everything. There's a region of the brain responsible for producing language, and researchers have found that it goes quieter during emotional flooding. So when she's standing there and nothing is coming out, and someone is saying, "Just talk to me. Just tell me what's wrong," she's not choosing silence. Her brain has literally made words harder to reach. The circuitry that builds sentences and finds the right language is running slower because other systems have taken priority. Keeping her regulated is the more urgent task. This is cognitive offloading in reverse. Most people externalize to process. They talk it out. They vent. They think out loud. Her nervous system does the opposite. It pulls everything inward and slows the output down so it can keep her functional. The processing doesn't stop. The expression does. So when she says "I'm fine" and clearly isn't, she's not lying. She's buying time. She doesn't have the words yet because her brain hasn't finished doing what it needs to do. "I'm fine" is a placeholder, a way of saying, "I'm still here, but I can't give you what you're asking for right now." The freeze is what people see. What they don't see is what's running underneath it. While she looks completely still, her brain is doing something most people's brains never do in an emotional moment. The default mode network, the system tied to self-reflection, memory retrieval, and modeling future outcomes, lights up during her silence. She is not checked out. She is running one of the most mentally active states a person can be in. The internal questions cycling through her while she's quiet sound something like this. Did I cause this? Have I felt this before? What do I actually want to happen here? If I open my mouth right now, is it going to come out right, or is it going to make everything worse? She's not avoiding the problem. She's stress testing every angle of it before she says a single word, because for her, speaking before she understands what she feels carries real risk. But here's where it gets deeper, because she wasn't born this way. Babies scream. Toddlers fall apart in the cereal aisle without a single thought about whether anyone's watching. Kids express pain loudly and openly and without apology until something teaches them not to. At some point, something taught her that being open about her hurt wasn't safe. Maybe it was a house where feelings were treated like inconveniences, where she cried and got told she was being too sensitive. Maybe she opened up to someone she trusted completely and they minimized it, laughed it off, or pulled it out later when it could do the most damage. Maybe she showed someone exactly how much she was hurting, and instead of being met with care, she got a lecture, or silence back, or the feeling that her pain was somehow the problem. So she adapted. John Bowlby's attachment research makes this plain. The way we learn to handle emotional pain comes directly from our earliest close relationships. When those early relationships teach a girl that vulnerability leads to more pain, her nervous system files that lesson. and it pulls it out every single time something hurts, even decades later, even with completely different people who have never given her a reason to hide. This is where the internal locus of evaluation develops, not as a strength at first, but as a shield. She stops looking outward for her feelings to be validated because outward stopped feeling safe. She builds the processing entirely inward, where no one can minimize it or use it against her. Part of her silence is also protecting the people around her. She already knows what lies at the bottom of that pain when it's raw and unprocessed. She knows that if she opens up before she's ready, what comes out won't be a conversation. It'll be something that can't be taken back. So she holds it, not to punish anyone, but because she cares enough about what she's in to not blow it apart in a moment of unfiltered hurt. That's vicarious emotion working as a brake, not avoidance. There's a concept in psychology called the window of tolerance, the emotional range where real communication is actually possible. When someone is flooded and raw, outside that window, nothing productive gets said and nothing gets truly heard. She already knows this intuitively, even if she's never had a name for it. The silence is her waiting until the conversation is actually possible. And here's the painful irony. The one thing that would help her come back is almost always the opposite of what she gets. People push, they follow her, pressure her, say you can't just shut me out. And every single time that happens, it confirms the belief her nervous system already holds that her way of processing isn't valid, that her feelings are only acceptable if they arrive on someone else's timeline. The pressure doesn't open her up. It closes her further. So what happens when it finally breaks? When she speaks, it's not a reaction, it's a conclusion. She's turned those words over 100 times before they leave her mouth, checked them for accuracy, checked them for fairness, checked them against what she actually knows to be true, rather than what the worst moment made her feel. She doesn't throw accusations out mid-argument just to watch them land. She doesn't weaponize emotion to win. What comes out when she's ready is precise, because she's already moved through the wreckage of it internally before she let anyone else near it. That's stress inoculation at work. The silence wasn't avoidance, it was preparation. By the time she speaks, she's already survived the worst of it inside her own head, which means the conversation can actually go somewhere instead of just burning everything down. What she needs isn't someone who can fix the quiet. It's someone who can stay in it without making it about themselves. Patience without pressure. When someone who processes inwardly feels zero pressure to perform their feelings on someone else's schedule, they open up more, not because they were forced to, but because for the first time it felt safe enough to. That's the only condition under which her silence actually lifts. The path forward for her isn't learning to speak faster. It's learning to signal that she's still in it, still coming back, so the people around her don't fill the quiet with the wrong story. A simple, "I'm not ready yet, but I will be," does more than most people realize. It keeps the door open without forcing her through it before she's found solid ground. And if you've recognized yourself in any of this, here's the reframe worth keeping. This isn't emotional unavailability, it's emotional integrity. In a world that rewards whoever reacts the fastest and the loudest, her quiet, careful way of moving through pain will keep being misread by the people who need noise to feel connected. But the right ones will learn to sit in it without fear. She goes quiet because her nervous system is protecting her, because she learned early that vulnerability had a cost, and because her brain processes pain with a depth most people never reach. She's not cold. She's not manipulative. She feels things completely. She just takes the time to understand them before she speaks. If this is you, the next step isn't speaking faster. It's finding one person who earns the silence and letting them. If this gave you language for something you've been carrying a long time, the next video goes even deeper into how the female mind actually works. You should watch that one next.